log on to your next. White Christensen.
Sam Dykeman.
We're live, yes.
I guess we are unmuted. So,
Let's see if I can.
We're good.
and there is a delay. Can you hear it?
Good evening, Sandites. Welcome to District Dialogue this evening. I want to explain a little bit about what District Dialogue is. Typically, we have a meeting before the Board of Education, meeting every month for about an hour, and we have the opportunity to discuss things that might be on our patrons' minds. Since we haven't been in person with board meetings, we thought that we might start kind of a new series on YouTube and actually, by subject, start discussing things with our patrons and have the ability for them to ask questions regarding different topics. And tonight is all about communication and district enrollment. And we have our team here with us tonight. On my left is Sean Beard. He's our executive director for teaching and learning for the district. On my right, I have Kristen Arnold. She's assistant superintendent over student services and human resources. And then Mr. Jay Roeder, he is actually the director of our virtual academy. So we're just going to start a little bit today talking about how you can find out things about what's going on in our district. One of the things that we learned at the end of our distance learning framework at the end of the year with the parent survey is really the broader way of methods we have to communicate with our people. And one of the things that we learned is maybe a simplification of how to find out things about Sand Springs Public Schools would be to maybe narrow those streams. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Beard so he can talk about how to get good information about Sand Springs Public Schools.
And I'm going to switch to a slideshow here so that we can kind of go through some of these topics. But leading up to our discussion later on, if you have a question, we do have a link that you can go to. If you would like to enter a question on this form, we'll be responding to questions after the slideshow via this form. So as far as communication with the district, we have several things that, while we think that the public may know a lot about ways to communicate with the district, we thought we would put these out there for everybody to see and hear and at least connect with. First and foremost is our district website. So anytime that you want to find out any information about Sand Springs Public Schools, you can go to www.sandites.org. If you go to the top of the page when you get to the site, there's 3 menu items up there. There's a larger menu, which we're going to get to in just a minute when we talk about enrollment. But there's also a sites page where you can connect with your school site. So if, for instance, if you're a parent or a student at the at Clyde Boyd Middle School, for instance, or at Charles Page High School, you can click on sites and go directly to your school site and view information about your school there.
Sean, you might talk about a little bit at the beginning. We do have a pop-up window that shows at the very beginning.
That is true.
So you might mention.
So let me just do this. Let me just jump live to the website so that we can kind of look around a little bit. And I'm going to share a different page here. So sorry about our.
I threw a loop.
Yeah, she threw a loop.
I like to do that to Sean. It's fun,
So actually, when you first get to the website, you will see a pop-up. Right now, we have a lot of information out there that's still left over from distance learning and COVID-19 information, which we still update that information as we get it from the State Department and the CDC. So if you'd like to view that information, this pop-up will let you jump to any of these links that are on here. We update this banner throughout the year, so as any information or news becomes important to the district or the parents or students, we'll put it up front here if you'd like to see that. You can click anywhere or click the X to exit out of that. And then, as I was saying before, if you click on sites, you can jump to any of the sites in the district. For instance, if I wanted to go to Charles Page High School, I can click on that page and it will take me to the high school webpage. Anything that's important or pertinent to Charles Page High School students will be over here on the left. So for instance, if you wanted to jump to the WinGauge gradebook, you can see that here, or the CPHS course guide. Also, you'll find news about Charles Page High School, and then you'll find a live feed of current announcements coming from the high school. For instance, we've had some information out here about picking up wristbands for graduation, which is going to happen this Saturday. So anytime you want to find out information about your site, just check out the news and the live feed. And then there will also be events listed at the bottom of the screen showing important dates for that site.
Can I say,
Sure.
me, I have to insert, so go down to the bottom of the screen. Don't hand me that mouse. So the dates you're seeing that I just noticed, you're seeing scheduled pickup for our students. And we'll be talking more about how startup's going to happen and schedule pickup at the different sites, but what you're seeing now are calendar dates that are pre-established for pickup schedules for Charles Page for each of the classes.
And then, of course, at the bottom, one of the things that we'll get to in a minute, you can jump to any site by going to the bottom of any page. You can see contact information for your school site down at the bottom as well. And then the other thing is you can also connect with the school through a school app, as well as social media, which we're going to show in just a minute on the slideshow. So just a lot of different ways that you can connect through the website. And of course, up at the top, if you want to switch from English to Spanish, you can view the site in Spanish as well. If you need to search the site, just click on the search icon and put in any link such as enrollment. Okay, we can look up enrollment later. And then the menu takes you to specific things such as dining or events or staff listings if you'd like to see staff at that site. So I'm going to switch back to the slideshow. Since I was thrown.
I like to do that too.
Okay, so that's the district website, and then in addition to that, like I said, there are apps. There's an app for that. So if you have, whether you have an Android phone or an Apple iPhone, you can get an app for the district, and it will lead you to some of the same information without having to go to the district website on your browser. You can get a lot of information through the app. You can also set up notifications on your app so that if there are notifications sent out specifically about your school, you can have that pop up on your phone's screen.
Nice.
If you need to contact your child's teacher, you can always go to the website and look at the staff listings and get email addresses. But for the most part, email addresses of teachers are first name dot last name at sandites.org. And of course, as I said, we also have our social media links. So if you'd like to follow the school on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you can use any of these links that are here on the screen.
So let's leave that up for a second. I want to talk about also we utilize text messaging and push notifications by phone as well. So if there are pretty important messages that we want to make sure everybody has access to, including things like survey links or any kind of emergency type situations that we might have at school. If you, during enrollment, give us access and are willing to allow us to send you text messages, that's another way that we're able to communicate in a very quick way to get important information out.
Okay.
Just a quick helpful hint.
Absolutely.
So if a teacher calls you from a site and you call back and say, I missed a phone call from this number, we have no way of knowing because it doesn't connect directly to a teacher's classroom. So when you call the site back and say, I just got a call from this number, you're like, it could be one of your teachers, but we don't know because it just leaves the main number when you call. It doesn't leave that direct extension. So it's really best to communicate through email or just to shoot an email out to the teachers to say, hey, did you try to contact me? Because unless the teacher tells the office, we don't know.
Right. So absolutely, email. I
From
think
the
we
main site.
communicated that out during our distance learning spring semester. That email really is the most effective way to get teachers to respond back to you. So that's a great point, Ms. Arnold. So I think we're going to shift now to enrollment. So here's where we get a little bit, I know we have some questions coming in, so we're not ignoring those. We're going to answer them as they come. And by the way, don't forget to submit your questions as you have them. But Ms. Arnold, if you talk about enrollment and kind of how that works through links on the website, how to get to the registration page, and then maybe talk about the difference between pre-registration versus course enrollment. Maybe that clarification would be good.
Right. So first of all, I just want to say that the Enrollment Center is located, it's a different building. We're kind of spread out, which I'm going to share that address and information here in just a minute. So if you are an existing student in Sand Springs or a new student or went virtual, the first thing that you need to do is go to the Sand Springs website, which Sean discussed earlier. So it's that www.sandites.org. And then you're going to go to the search box where it has the little hourglass. No, it's not hourglass. What's it called?
It's a little magnifying
Little
glass.
magnifying glass. Like a
We can
super
go there
sleuth.
now.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
take us there, we'll
Okay.
just kind of click through it, is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Super sleuth.
Yep.
After you click on that, you're just going to type in enrollment.
So,
This is
Switch
the
back to
easiest
the
way.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, there it is. And then you'll see Enrollment Center. And if you click on that link, it's going to take you to the website. And then there's all the information that I was telling you about for the Enrollment Center. You'll notice there's school supply list. We are working on updating those. Those, I think, if they're not updated, they will be by tomorrow. So we are still working through that, but we do have them ready to push out.
So I've got a question, I'm just gonna throw a question at you. One big thing that's probably gonna be on the school supply list.
Clorox wipes. Wait, there's two, and hand
Hand
sanitizer.
sanitizer.
So start looking now. Usually Monday mornings is the best time to get the wipes.
The wipes.
I don't know. That's the only time I can find them. If you see it, send it out on the message board. Wipes at Walmart, so we can start purchasing now. So with that said, you've got the hours, the dates, the time. But go ahead, Sean, and it's part of this slide, but it won't matter either way. If you scroll down through that, and this is what the directions tell you to do. If you scroll down, keep going, and then you'll see: are you a pre-enrolling? An existing student? Are you pre-enrolling an existing student? Meaning, does your child already go to Sand Springs Public Schools? Are they enrolled there? Were they enrolled there last year? I don't care if it was for 4 days and that's where you're out. You haven't transferred out and are coming back in. Then they're an existing student. And so it says click here, and you would click there, and then you follow the process. A new student would be a pre-K student, a kindergarten student, because they go back in as new, or you are new to our district. Even if you've been here in 3rd grade and you're coming back in 4th grade, but you went to another district, you are a new student. You are starting over through the process. And then on that website, it also lists everything that you're going to need for the documents. If you have the ability to upload or mobile capture from your phone, your iPhone or an Android, it'll go either way. When you click here, it steps you through it. But
sometimes people ask me why we have to re-enroll. As a parent, I had 3 that went through Sand Springs Public Schools, and in the
Right.
spring, we had to re-enroll every year.
Right.
And so I think that's a healthy answer for people. Why is it that I have to fill out those enrollment forms again?
well, definitely information changes. We want things
Right.
to be updated. We want to know, as your address change, your emergency contacts. There's a lot of things that will go on with families, and so we want to keep things updated. We also want to know if there's any health concerns for the next year, and so just various information that we need. And
some of those reforms are current. In other words,
Right.
they have to be reissued every year.
Right.
So internet agreement is
Right.
something that has to be signed every year. Of course, free and reduced lunch forms have to be resubmitted every year. So some of those, just by nature of requirement by law, must be done every
Right.
year with signature. So
definitely, so it's not just always us, but it's governmental stuff
Right.
that's a requirement.
Sure.
So we wish that you could just scan your thumbprint on your phone and you're in, but that's not the way the world works for us either. So moving on a little bit, the next slide just talks about what we just talked about. If you're enrolling and those things that you need, if you go back to the slideshow, there's singing and dancing little candy people come across the bottom. Not really. It's exciting stuff. So the next one really kind of talks about, go one more, Sean, we can talk about that. The next one talks about items that would be required for a transfer or application into our district, and it just listed there. So in order to do a new student, which you can do totally online. You don't have to come in, but in order to do a transfer affidavit, you will have to make an appointment with the enrollment center in order to get all the documentation and what we need, because we have to have physical signatures with you there for an affidavit and such to make sure that, you know, we're meeting all the requirements that we have to. But if you'll call at any given point, if you're stuck, if you'll call the number, the main number, they will reach back out to you, make an appointment for you, or help you right there when you guys are on the phone to get whatever you need. So a little bit of clarification though, enrollment has to do with like the district counts. Like, so when I pre-enroll or I enroll my existing child, that is for the district. So that's one thing. That's separate from course selection or course, what do you guys call it? Course registration. There's some different names that kind of float around. A course registry, when you're registering or choosing your course selections, that is done with a site. So if Jay was my student, first I have to enroll him, because you can't have a schedule if he's not enrolled. I might know that Jay's coming back, but he's not pre-enrolled, so I can't give him a schedule until he's actually enrolled in the district, step one. Step two, the site then says, and he likes manufacturing, so that's something he definitely wants in. So, but you want to do that early so you can get your kids in the courses and we can make those plans and really take a look at each individual student of what that might look like. Because he might be going to tech, he might be playing in the band, he might have a virtual class, and then have just regular enrollment, which brings us to...
Go back though. So you're primarily
Virtual
talking
enrollment.
about kids who are in secondary. So
Secondary
if
kids.
and I like to call it pre-registration, I'm registering for Sandy Springs Public Schools, and sometimes it helps clarify it in my mind. For elementary students, that pre-registration that happens generates a trigger for a site principal to actually assign that student to a teacher. And so it's really important to make sure registration happens.
100%.
Kind of call that enrollment, so that we can get your student where they need to be. So either assigned to a classroom teacher at the elementary level, or to a secondary counselor to develop a schedule for course attendance when school starts. So that is different. We might pause, because I know Mr. Roder wants to talk about Virtual Academy, and we're really excited about some changes for virtual, and he is the guy. But do we have questions specifically about enrollment?
I do have one more thing I want to share about enrollment too. So, and the other reason why we like to get everybody pre-enrolled, so we know our numbers, because we have a lot of districts that have students that want to transfer in, and we really have to have solid numbers in order to start accepting those transfers, or to look at inter-district transfers. Like if I was in Angus Valley area and I wanted to go to Pratt Elementary, until we have solid numbers, and parents get a little frustrated with this when we don't tell them immediately that we also don't want to overload classes or overload one site. We want to make sure that we have, you know, equal amounts, and we don't have 27 in one class and 15 in another. So it's important.
With a few exceptions, honestly, and that's something I'm really proud of in our district, with a few exceptions, and those of you that work and go to school in Limestone probably are aware, but we really have maintained an elementary class size of around 22, 23, again, with a few exceptions. So again, that's really important, so that we can make sure that we keep class sizes as small as possible. So are there questions?
We do have this question.
Okay. So we have a question that says, how simple will the process be to switch in between in-person enrollment and virtual enrollment within the district? So let's shift and let Mr. Roder talk about virtual enrollment first. And then, if you don't mind answering that question, that's a great place to start for you.
That's a good question. So we'll go back to the slideshow, because there is a virtual enrollment slide
We're
for that.
making Sean work really hard. It's good for him.
I
Keep
think
it
we
moving.
skipped my last one.
It's okay.
That's all the information they were looking for.
So Virtual Academy, the exciting part for the Virtual Academy this year is that we now are located at an off-campus away from Charles Page High School at what has been the 9th grade center building. The second floor on the east side is where the library always was, and that is our lab space where from 7:20 in the morning until 5:30 or 6:30, depending on the day of the week, we will have teachers in that space where students can come, work, take tests, ask questions, get any help that they may need. Seniors, high school students in general that need help tracking credits, they can come ask. We can pull transcripts, get all that information for them as needed as fast as possible.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. So our
Okay.
virtual academy enrollment last year at the end of the year was how many students?
We finished with 253 students.
And those were full-time virtual or blended?
Full-time virtual or blended, all of them having at least one virtual class, up to 7 virtual classes. Some of them were doing an 8th-hour after school so they could take Tulsa Tech and TCC concurrent enrollment classes during the day. So it's a little bit of mix of everything.
But
We're gonna
Mr.
delve in-
Roeder,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. Roeder, what is blended?
Blended is a mix of on-site classes, so students can go and take Project Lead the Way at Charles Page High School. They might go to Tulsa Tech and do the welding program there, go to TCC, take a couple of concurrent enrollment classes, and still do 1 or 2 virtual classes to finish out their schedule for the day.
And we're going to delve deep into that in a couple of weeks to really get into the details of virtual. But really the capture is trying to customize an education for students in whatever way, shape, or form they choose, which is nice. The other beautiful thing, in my opinion, about where we are at with virtual enrollment, we've been doing this for since 2011. Mr. Beard actually was the, pioneer of that program in the beginning, but expanded it several years ago to encompass even elementary students. So we're offering a full K through 12 program, pre-K actually, for enrollment. The nice shift in this current environment that we find ourselves in that I think all of us are struggling, honestly, just a little bit to figure out is the whole COVID situation and understanding there are parents that may choose a virtual platform based on being comfortable with sending their student back to school. And so I'm actually proud of where we're at with our virtual academy. So how does enrollment work? That's the question of the night.
Enrollment is really simple for us. It's during the summer, you can contact me and I just ask what school site. Once I know that, I contact the principal or the counselor and they help me know what courses you will need. High school graduation credits, that's a big deal. Middle school, we have our core classes we go with, and then we have a little over 300 courses to choose from. So in everything, in basically every career pathway out there, we have something that students can find interesting. If they're not sure what they want to look at, we have some career exploration courses that they can do. The goal being to make their schedule meaningful to them, not just the standard, let's go take a health class, let's go do just, fill in the blank classes. Let's find a course schedule that has some value to it and that adds some longevity and some planning, long-term planning into that enrollment process.
So I have a quick, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to throw this out there just for the people that are viewing. So, and I've had this question several times from parents. So if my child goes to virtual school with Sand Springs Public Schools, can they walk across the stage or can they graduate with their senior class?
Absolutely. Anything that is available for an on-campus student with Sand Springs Public Schools, that is available for a virtual academy student with Sand Springs Public Schools. Our elementary students are paired up with a classroom teacher at their homeschool site. So when they do field trips or they do class parties, the students are invited to attend those. We want the students to still be a part of that community school. Same thing goes for middle school and high school. The students can be part of the football team, they can play basketball, they can do drama, they can be on the academic team, debate team, anything that is going on at the school site, we want them to have the option of participating in those
Okay,
activities.
Mr. Burke, I've seen a couple of simple questions. One, a simple one is a little tricky. When can I enroll in the virtual program?
Right now,
Today.
we can, we'll
Well,
start, we
not
start
right this
that.
very second.
Right, not
It
right
is
this very, yeah.
7:30.
But every day, all day, that's part of what I'm doing is enrolling students for August. When that happens, that allows me to get a head start. Students aren't required to work on anything until August 18th when school starts, but we are doing all the paperwork now, so we're ready to go.
Matt Barnett just asked if Sean Beard could buy him lunch. I'm going to tell Matt no already. Well, maybe. I think he should buy you and buy friends lunch, Matt. There you go.
As long as it's out of his budget.
Well, really quick, Jay, the second part of that question was, if I don't do Sand Springs virtual school and I do a virtual school elsewhere, and parents have believed this before, but my child cannot walk with the senior class. It needs to, I need to go through with the seniors, but I do everything. But if I went to a different virtual class, then I would not be walking.
Right. Yeah, you have to be a part of Sand Springs Public Schools.
Right, exactly. The student. So now, here's the next kind of tricky question. How simple will the process be to switch between in-person enrollments and virtual enrollment within Sand Springs Public Schools? Now, let me preface this, because there could be times where, because of COVID, there could be a student who would be quarantined potentially for a short period of time. And so we've taken care of that. So you might talk through that. Let's just say we have a fifth grader who would need to access virtual for a short period of time. How would that look?
So short period of time enrollment, we can do through the virtual academy. If it's a distance learning format, the classroom teacher would continue to provide those resources. But if you needed tutoring during the day and the classroom teacher was not available, you could utilize the virtual academy teachers at that time so that you could get help with math, you could get help with English, science, whatever you're needing. It's a partnership between the school site and the virtual academy so that we can help them while at the same time helping the school.
And will my child be counted absent?
We have a policy for distance learning attendance or virtual attendance, and as long as your child is completing their coursework, they will not be counted absent.
Fantastic. So now I'm seeing another question about applying for a transfer, which really, Christina, falls under your domain, but do you have to apply for a transfer each year? And this is funny, asking for people that may not know that.
Okay, so there are two types of transfers. There's an open transfer, which means that once you receive an open transfer, you do not have to request one anymore. Open transfers can be requested starting in 4th grade through high school. An emergency transfer means that it is temporary. So the first year that somebody transfers in, generally though, we'll put them on an emergency transfer for that first year. And then after, I believe it's after 3 years, they're automatically on it. It's a little confusing.
An open.
It is, on an open. We
Right.
move them to an open. So there's two different, but yes, if you're elementary, lower elementary up through 3rd grade, you reapply each year for emergency transfer.
Fantastic. And then for an open transfer for students that are older, application prior to April 1st.
Yes, there's a deadline.
Constitutes an open transfer. Those are really tricky questions.
They are.
And I love that you're asking those. And Ms. Arnold is the district guru and would be more than happy to field any of those questions.
Or call the Enrollment Center and Bonnie Larkin can answer those.
I'm getting one question that's kind of ahead of our game because we're going to go into a setting where soon we're going to talk about health guidance and what does school start look like. That's going to be a full conversation when our guidance is complete. But I'm seeing one that's really easy to answer tonight. I say easy. I don't know if it's easy or not. But when does school start, or when do you think it will start? And so our plan today is to begin school. I know, drum roll, please.
Yeah.
On August 18th, as was adopted by the school board back in March. We have tossed around those ideas that have been kind of discussed and thrown out about the development of different calendars. There are folks that are implementing virtual days inside their normal calendar. We're, I think at this point, choosing not to do that today, mostly because as long as we can have kids face-to-face, we want to see them face-to-face. And so our plan is to start school as normal as possible today, at this point in time, understanding that there could be some disruptions along the way. But that's the plan, and I think it's important for people to know that. Of course, we're trying to solidify some guidance so that we try to minimize health risks as much as possible without disturbing the content of a quote-unquote normal school year as much as possible. But that's a fair question, and so I actually said the other day, I'm not going to go on record saying it, but truly that is the design of the plan as I think most districts will be when school starts in the fall.
And with our ability for our district to go virtual or to go,
To that
distance learning, I mean,
Right.
I really feel like the one calendar is going to work for us.
I think so too. Okay, so let's see, what else is up there? Is there anything else I'm not?
That's-
This one, okay. How will effective COVID-19 change up the classroom situation? And so we're hoping that we can minimize the risk with some guidelines that we put in place. For those of you that have been following CDC and our state health department, we've been in contact with our Tulsa Health Department. By the way, those folks are working fast and furious to try to get the best, most current information out. I'm hoping there's not a huge amount of difference. Obviously, we're going to have to at least to the best of our ability, maintain some distancing, which is tough at preschool and early elementary. We know this. At the same time, again, trying to normalize as much as we can. So those are topics that we'll get into in detail a little bit later when we figure those guidelines out. We're consistently and have been meeting as a team of professionals since really March. I couldn't even tell you the date at this point in time, 25th maybe.
It's been a while.
It's been a while to try to get a good handle. And what's happening is new information is really coming to the surface almost daily. And so working really hard to keep up with those trends and what's happening. So more to come on that one. That will be a whole topic in and of itself in the next few weeks so that people can get a really great gauge on how that's going to work. What else? Are there other questions?
I see a question that's specific to an inter-district transfer,
Okay.
and if that person will email me, Kristen, Kristin, like you're in with Kristen.Arnold @sandites.org, and give me a phone number, I will give you a personal call and talk through that for you, and that way you'll get your answers straight from the horse's mouth.
Absolutely. We're making ourselves very available, and so right now we have a fully staffed enrollment center. It's still pretty tough. They're busy girls up there, no doubt. Mr. Tim Ray actually has been a part of the enrollment center now. This is new for this summer, just to keep people's questions answered a little bit more readily, as well as just offering some help and support in center. So absolutely keep those questions coming. So masks seems to be a big question. At this point in time, we're saying we're not going to require masks for students. There's a lot of reasons for that. Again, we'll get into the details later on, but I know that was a concern, I think, earlier in a Facebook post. People had questions about, oh my gosh, are we going to require masks? And one of the two trigger words that we have been hearing over and over again is to ask ourselves is it practical and is it feasible? And so there's a lot of things when you have lots of kids at school and trying to provide a normal environment that are not practical. And so those two questions definitely we've taken into consideration as we're developing. So again, stay patient with us. More to come as we work through the specifics of that. Will the high school and middle school be switching classes? At this point, that's the plan. I will say with the abundance of enrollment options that we have at Charles Page High School, and really at middle school as well, they really need to have access to, number one, the programs that they opt in for. And Sean can go into, I'm sure, great detail about the kind of curriculum and learning that that students have available at Charles Page High School. It's pretty immense, so you might want to talk
Yeah.
about
Beyond
that.
beyond what we've already talked about with Mr. Roder's program in the Virtual Academy, we do have a pretty robust curriculum in terms of virtual and digital curriculum that's available to the teachers. So, as we learned to use Google Classroom during distance learning, we'll continue to use that same format, but teachers will be able to deliver more robust digital learning through Google Classroom. And we're actually working with our teachers this summer to kind of help them work on developing their curriculum online, as well as making it simpler for parents and students to access that content in the event that we have to flip a switch and go back to a distance learning model.
There's a question, will we be given a clear understanding as to how traditional school will work and what differences children will be expected to work through, i.e. math, participating in PE, music, eating in the country? And the answer to all those questions is yes. Again, we're still trying to nail down specific guidelines and ask ourselves what's practical and what's feasible. We think most of our elementaries will be able to manipulate that restriction of 250 large group setting or less fairly well, given the size of our elementary schools. So again, working through those details, and I know you guys want to know now, but give us a chance, and that's again going to be a whole topic on a given night.
I saw a comment on there that somebody was kind of holding off on pre-enrolling their students until they see what that guidance is or what we put out. And we understand that. We are working through that as quickly as possible, and we're getting closer. I mean, we had a meeting today, we have another meeting. But with that said, when it comes to pre-enrollment, if you go ahead and pre-enroll now, and if you change your mind, all you have to do is call, and then they'll just drop, they can drop you from the enrollment, or they'll send you to Mr. Roder, who will have a conversation with you about what that could look like, even if you planned on staying at home with your child, about how we could help facilitate that. Because literally, if they are at home, there is a pacing calendar, there's all kind, we're hitting all the benchmarks and everything they need to know. So I would just say pre-enroll, but we'll be getting that information out soon.
There's another question I really want to answer. Will school be on campus or just distance learning? And school will be on campus. Again, realizing that there are folks that might choose a different option based on being exposed to folks that are maybe immune compromised, and so we want to make sure that we have a virtual academy ready to go. But the intention is that the school will be on campus. Again, as normal as we can make it, with some guidance in place so that we're really cognitive of student health and the health of our staff. What else do we see up there, you guys? Typical classroom seating arrangement. We're going to have a whole show on that one. But again, things like placing chairs in the same direction, so to minimize coughing and sneezing on others and those kinds of things. We're going to find this to be an opportunity to talk about just guidance for children in regard to how to keep yourself safe, washing hands and covering noses and mouths when you sneeze and those kinds of things. So lots of opportunity, honestly, to teach some good guidance for keeping yourself healthy, for sure. Is there anything else that you all are seeing?
Central 9th grade center.
Oh, that's a fun question. So when will Central 9th grade center be completed? The truth is we've shifted to the name Freshman Academy, and inside that system center, but the very cool part about what's happening this summer is we're ahead of that game. And so we went to a construction meeting today.
That's right.
Projected meeting or completion, I know furniture was mid-July.
Mid-July, yes.
And so hoping to get that all set up before the 1st of August, and it is beautiful.
And
so excited about that.
I think that the teachers and the students and the parents will be very pleased with the classroom layout,
Right.
sizing of the classrooms. We're trying to incorporate as much in terms of technology that we can incorporate into the classrooms to allow for collaboration, but still allow for digital learning to take place in the classroom. So I think people will be pleased once we open the facility.
Everything's new. I mean,
Everything.
furniture, monitors, I mean, just all of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful building with big entry. I can't wait to show off to the public. We're in the midst of talking through how we're going to strategically open it up for people to see and get people in to pick up schedules and take a peek. So that is definitely a bright spot for sure in this whole thing. Anything else that you see? We've got about 5 minutes before we have said when will the next stream take place? We had a discussion about that today. So our goal is to do these weekly. We'll delve into different topics. One will be health guidance, obviously, and how we're going to make that work in the physical structure of the building. When we talk about operations, you also have to talk about bus transportation. And so we're going to be having our transportation director on one evening to talk about how that could possibly look. One thing I would like for parents to be thinking about is the possibility, if you can transport your own child, it might help us. If you have the ability to do that, of course, we're going to be running bus routes for sure, trying to minimize the risk. And I'm sure you're going to see drivers in masks for their own protection as well, and windows down on the bus. Those are the two biggies. But you do have the option, of course, to transport your child, which, if you feel confident and would be willing to help us out, might make you feel safer about the closed quarters on the actual school bus. So we're going to do that a little bit as well. So Tuesday nights,
Yeah.
7 to 7:45. The topics, Sean's got them
The
pulled up.
reentry plan.
The reentry plan is one. Virtual Academy is another one. We wanted Jay on here tonight to talk a little bit about how to enroll there. We're going to do one on early childhood. That's kind of a trigger for us. We haven't seen the 4-year-olds yet, and so we don't have a huge gauge on who is going to show up, who to contact. So if you could spread that word around that our 4-year-old program pre-K is going to be at our Early Childhood Education Center. I'm very excited about that. Let's see, special education is going to be one of them. So Miss Carrie Slay-Huber will be on talking about special education. And then distance learning. We're going to be talking about the difference between spring distance learning and expectations for the fall distance learning. We're going to be offering new content with grade level standards, with assessment to make sure our kids are learning what they should be learning. So a little bit more, I hate to use the word accountability, but truly a little bit more student accountability and making sure they're getting what they need for sure. And then have a little bit of talk about preschool events like when is meet and greet, how are we going to do scheduled pickup, those events that happen before school starts, back to school nights, and how that's going to work logistically with each of our site principals. So lots of fun, I think they're fun topics to talk about. Any other questions? We have a couple of minutes. Sean, do you see something that?
There was one about a kindergartner. The kindergartner, how will the experience of this grade and other younger grades look? Will they be desk bound, or will they be a familiar type and style of learning?
Truly, if I'm gonna go out on a limb, and we're gonna have some collaboration meetings with our kindergartners, but let me just tell you, I'm not sure you can ever bound a kindergartner to his desk. It wouldn't be appropriate, and nor would that be something that we would want to do. And so, again, just keep in mind, practical and feasible. Those are two words you need to kind of hang on to. Is it practical for a kindergartner to be in his desk all day long? And we don't think so. So trying to figure out how to teach them to be respectful of other spaces, but at the same time in a center where I can learn about whatever the topic is for that day. They learn a lot through play, and so we certainly don't want to stifle those things. And so again, practical, feasible, those are the questions we're asking ourselves. Great questions, you guys. I appreciate the interaction. It is 7:44 probably, and I don't know what time it is, but 7:44. It's probably time to say goodbye, but I hope you join us next week at 7, and we'll start the dialogue again and try to touch base with you all and answer questions that you might have about the given topic. So thank you for joining us.
Please share out.
Please share, absolutely. This will be recorded. Am I right about that?
It will still be available
Okay.
on our YouTube channel at Standout Learning.
Right. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Bring a friend next
And
time.
bring a friend.
We're out.